Well, hello and welcome everybody to this important topic that we're going to talk about today. My name is Kathy Nelson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers, and I'm really glad you're here. If this is your first time joining us, very special welcome to you. And please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Those things are always important for those as we try to build visibility about who we are and what we do and the stories that we want to tell. So we really appreciate that. So today's topic is close to my heart. I just was saying to the behind scenes here is someone who cared for somebody with dementia. My mom actually did pass away at the end of January, so it's still pretty recent to me. I know how difficult it can be. My mom wasn't officially diagnosed ever with Alzheimer's. It was more a dementia that came on. Well, like the family, they say, is sometimes the last to understand or realize how significant it is because they can hide it. And I think that happened with my mom. But certainly in the last 18 months to 24 months of her life, and as we reflect back now with her passing, we can see it more and more. So this is a really important topic in how memories fade and how families manage caregiving and then what kind of technology and support there is. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Ellen Goodwin. She's a health researcher and co-founder of a great app called Artifact. And she is also a caregiver whose mom is still alive today, that she's still in the process of caregiving, and she's going to join me in this conversation. So whether you're a caregiver or a professional photo organizer or someone who's just looking at those early stages, we want to give you practical tips, emotional insights, and tools that you can use. So before we jump in again, please like us again, and also feel free to leave questions in the chat, and we will make sure that we answer your questions as best that we're able as we go along. So, but we'll save those to the end. So, all right, let's get started with Ellen. Ellen, here you are. Please join me and let's dive in.
Thank you for having me. We are here to talk about dementia and family stories and the tech that can help you all stay connected. And we're going to lean a little bit in this discussion on what research can illuminate for us in this process, and we hope that you find it helpful. So with no further ado, before we go deeper into introductions, on the next slide, we're going to lay the foundation with true truths so that we can get on the same page together. Truth number one is that storytelling and story sharing have really important social functions for people of all ages and all stages of the lifespan. And yes, even for people with dementia. While dementia certainly brings with it a lot of changes, everyone wants someone to listen to them and to do so without being judged or feeling tested. The second truth for setting the stage here is that conversation is a creative art, and creative arts are uniquely exceptional for brain health and resilience. And that can help with a whole variety of symptoms, including apathy, anxiety, isolation, all of which affect quality of life. So yes, we want you to go out, go ask, go converse, go be your normal social selves and fill up those treasure troves of family stories. It's a win-win, and that's a theme we're going to hit on over and over again today. But the question is how, and that is why we are here. So we'll do now the traditional quicker introductions on the next slide.
Oops, I did that. Got it.
So Kathy, did you want to add anything on your bio before I jump in?
Yeah, I realized we have to update that caregiver to a mom with a dementia. It's correct. Who transitioned in January, and I'm also the author of 2 books: Photo Organizing Made Easy and a Business Roadmap for Professional Photo Managers. But most importantly, I'm a mom, and I'm a daughter, and I'm a parent. I've had parents who have both passed on and dealt with dementia issues.
Thank you. And we're both going to try and bring those stories to benefit all of you today. I do lead occasional caregiver workshops for Hilarity for Charity, Bringing Light to Alzheimer's. It's founded by Seth Rogen and Lauren Miller Rogen. She was an early caregiver. Her mother was diagnosed when Lauren was only in her 20s. And they built a foundation that is all about providing the support to caregivers and really changing the script about brain health and how we can actually have lifestyle changes that can support us. Artifacts is also conducting a brain health study actively with UMass Chan Medical School, and we are trying to get on the early side, the screening side at any age, so that we can get ahead of the symptoms, make those lifestyle changes, get medical interventions as necessary. And we'll put a link into chat for anyone that might be interested in participating. If you're 65 and older, you can help us push science forward, and that will mean a lot for the future of screening for brain health. And as Kathy mentioned, I am the daughter of a woman who is going through this experience live as we talk. She has both a very common pairing of vascular dementia as well as Alzheimer's. And while that path is unique for everyone, I can say that we're lucky in our family that we have a lot of support and family that are here to provide that support. So onwards we go. Now we're going to jump into that first part of what I said. We're going to lean a little bit on research here and talk about the benefits of digital storytelling for people who are living with dementia. Next slide, please. Perfect. If you hear nothing else, the key takeaway here is that the process of capturing family stories as a caregiver, the work that you put in, is an inherently positive activity. Do it. The output, the stories, or the family lore, maybe, that's the bonus. And we'll talk more about your goals in a little bit here. But you as the caregiver bring the skills to this side of the equation. You're going to have the communication skills. You're going to have the ability to build that collaborative co-creation experience. And you're going to facilitate on the tech side as well. So what are some of those benefits that research tells us about digital storytelling? The first, I'm surprised, it won't come as a surprise. Increased social connectedness, confidence, empowerment, self-esteem. For many people who are diagnosed with dementia, the second they're diagnosed, for themselves and for others, they are their diagnosis. And it can be really hard to break out of that. Digital storytelling is one of those means that can break through those obstacles and put you not in caregiver and patient mode, but in friends having a conversation. And that goes to the second point, a safe space for reminiscence and self-expression. The non-judgment zone, the putting down the story as it's told to you. Doesn't matter if it's not backed up by 3 citations. It's fine if it's family lore. Again, what we said in the beginning, this is an inherently good activity. You want to be doing it. And digital storytelling encourages conversation and improves relationships between people. And that might be the person who's living with dementia and their care staff. As I've alluded to, it might be between the person living with dementia and their family members. You can bet that my daughter is actively artifacting with my mom. Not only do we live far apart, so we don't get to see each other very often, but there's this dementia factor that my daughter is too young to know what to do with. But she can ask grandma for stories, and she can be the conduit for recording those stories. That's what we're talking about. Digital storytelling is also a great avenue to provide more what's called person-centered care. If you've ever gone and brought someone into an assisted living facility, whether it's temporary or full-time, or graduated into a memory care, there's a lot of questionnaires that they have you fill in. They're valuable, don't get me wrong, but there's only so much you can get out of a 20-question questionnaire. And we worked with a gentleman, and his daughter told us that in the questionnaire, one of the questions was about hobbies and passions, right? And she said, my dad loves boating. Well, he became the boat guy, and he was like 3 months into this living experience. He's like, why is everyone asking me about boats? I went on 3 times. They were fun, but like, that's it. And so when you are creating this digital storytelling relationship, it creates a more natural way to peel back the layers and, to the next point, enable a deeper understanding of the person living with dementia, including all of their talents, their contributions over the courses of their lives. They are more than this diagnosis and anything that we can put on that form. And that's the beauty of digital storytelling becoming a part of your toolkit and the habit with how you start to engage. On the next slide, this is going to be a little blurry, I bet. I put the citation, but one of the things I really love about this visual is it distills beautifully the 3 core elements of digital storytelling that are so compelling as a means for engaging with that person living with dementia. The first is the communication, the active listening. It's not about being the best interviewer, it's actually about being the best listener and providing those really strong supporting affirmations and responses, the and the tell me more, and letting them go. The second is the building collaborative relationships. This is that co-creation piece, your joint authorship over these stories, right? You aren't the content expert in this case. They're the ones with the stories. You're the one facilitating. You're asking them for input. You're expressing common ground to encourage them. And the last, as you see in the green there, is the tech use, right? And the competence with technology, you see that huge category. That's where the person who's the caregiver, the family member, comes in to relieve that burden from the person who is living with dementia. But as you go into these conversations, what we want to talk about now is you have to know what your goals are, and so that you choose the right digital technology and the right approach for you. Kathy?
Yes, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of knowing your goals and accept that it's going to be a balance. As the capturing family stories is really something that's obviously critically important to me as a person who started the photo managers. It's something I care deeply about. But what was interesting, in all truth, is my mom was not as interested in that as I was. So I had to work really hard on my expectations about what I wanted to know from my mom and what my mom was able to share with me. And I had these fantasies that we would, I created once an album for her with all her photos of her childhood and things. And I left these this was before digital, but I left these places for me to fill in all the answers that she was going to give me. And we took her away on a vacation. And this is before she had dementia, because I was worried about that. And it just didn't go that well. So I think sometimes it's really important to realize that it's not always, the expectation isn't always it's going to be perfect. Done is better than perfect, right? I think there was some resistance there from maybe some painful memories that I was unaware of, that I never really got to the bottom of, likely that childhood stories that maybe she didn't want to share. But I think it's important. I just want to set those expectations right off the bat, that you don't expect that you're going to get the cooperation always from as the caregiver to the client that you're hoping for. And so patience becomes really important, and also maybe asking questions a little bit differently. So I think a few things that you want to think about is creating a safe space, and also a chance to confirm information, and you can probe quietly for more information. It was interesting in my mom's final days, though, when I laid on the bed with her and I was telling her, I said, wow, I remember this bed, which is true. It's the bed that was always in my life, the bed that was in my house growing up, and the bed that she was laying in as she was passing away. And I started telling her stories about how I remember running and jumping across the bed to answer the phone, because those were the days, you had phones and they were plugged in, and and you would chase, I would try and beat my sister or my brother to get to the phone, and how mad she would get that we would jump across her bed and mess up her bed. And that created one of the better stories that I had with her. And all the times of me trying to get stories, she started to laugh and tell me about, oh yeah, I remember that. And it just was a really great moment. So I'm just trying to and the idea of knowing your goals. What is it that you really want to accomplish? And each time that you have with with the person is a building block to stories that you can add at another time. So it doesn't mean that you have to know everything all at once, right? They can come in narratives, like they can almost be like a quilt. And my mom's awareness level at that moment was so much better than it had been even 2 weeks prior, where she wasn't even, she was asking, are my parents still alive? And, she was really deeply confused. And then suddenly she had that moment of clarity. So be prepared for that, and also enjoy those little moments when you get them, because my mom also experienced, I'm sure any of you that are dealing with this, a significant amount of anxiety in the process for her. So we were also trying to manage the anxiety that she was feeling. That got hard. It was frustrating as the caregiver to be always trying to lower the anxiety, and realizing at times just of taking a ride in the car and looking at the blue sky, or letting the breeze blow across her face, or hearing the birds sing, was as much of an opportunity for connection as maybe hearing a story that I really wanted, and things like that. So that time together is what builds those connections. So again, knowing your goals, if you're trying to get family stories before somebody has dementia, or maybe in the earlier stages, you might have a better chance of getting kind of all those stories that you want, but also to be patient with yourself and with the client that you're working with. Do you have anything else to add to that, Ellen? So let's talk about how we capture those stories. So there's all sorts of different amazing ways that you can do this, but there's also a lot of pros and cons. It can be overwhelming when you, even when we were preparing for this, we kind of did a search, I think, right, of all the different ways. And I don't know, it was probably 100 or some number. There's all sorts of apps and different things out there, but sometimes simple is best. And also depending on how your loved one manages technology. Again, I'm using my own personal experiences. My mother did not like technology. She never adjusted it. We bought her more iPad. I mean, my sister and I laughed. We bought iPads. We had radio when her blindness came on. We had, radio for the blind. We were like a plethora of opportunities. And at the end of the day, she never wanted any of it. And she, pretty much told us that, but we kept thinking, oh, maybe this will be the right one. So it's just a simple built-in recorder that just required my phone. That's where I got the best stories. I was able to just hit record and leave it running. And that worked much better than these ideas that I had that we were going to have this more engaging thing like that. So you have on your phone or on your laptop, great built-in recorders. Maybe just go with the simplest piece of it. And today with AI, my goodness, I mean, even 6 months ago, we didn't have the AI tools that we have today that can transcribe your the video quickly into a document and do editing and all sorts of things. There's also quite a few memory and story apps, and they're some of them are personalized. Some of them are phone calls. That there's things like Storyworth or Memento, two really amazing companies. They are creating books. They have different fees. I think some of them will actually call because they realize a lot of times it's one thing to give people a list of questions and expect them to type the answers and things. There's a realization that sometimes calling somebody on the phone, which was very familiar as talking on the phone, is a better way to get some of the answers to the stories. So there's a lot of different things like that out there. So again, like Life Bio or Story Lead. So you have to find the one that fits the personality of the client the patient that you're working with, and then also your own technology skill set. If you're really anxious about using technology or something, and your anxiety can get communicated to the person that you're caring for, you want to try to avoid that. A simple piece of paper and writing down notes also can be just as effective in terms of gathering that kind of information that you're wanting to get. There's also a lot of, go ahead.
Yep. And, one of the things, one of my favorite stories, Kathy, to add on to yours about, the sending prompts to people and asking them to answer questions. One of our Artifacts community members said her grandmother received such a gift, and it was like grandma's stories, right? And they tried and she'd get these prompts or whatever, and she finally answered one, and it was, what was the first argument you had after getting married? And they were all excited because there's an answer, and then the answer, who would remember? So that was not the tool for that grandmother.
Yeah, and I think in retrospect now, I think when I look back, I wanted those big answers. I wanted, what was it like? What my grandfather was a hard, a difficult man, and I knew that, and so I wanted her to talk to me about what was that like, or how did you feel about that? But really, those final days too, she laughed about the fun we had skiing once. She only skied with us one time, but that was the memory that came back, and she started saying, we had a lot of laughs, didn't we? And I was able to go with that. It wasn't, she wanted to talk about the laughs that we had, more about the deeper, serious topics that I was interested in, because I was trying to understand, my whole family, the dynamics of my whole family existence. And that was way more than what my mother was interested in exploring.
Really big goals.
Yeah. So these are things that I needed to do differently. There's also some great tools that you can use. That one is.
I'll jump in on this. The genealogy software. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, for the genealogist turned caregiver, if you already have a subscription to that genealogy software, they almost all have some way for you to attach a story in some form. And MyHeritage, even earlier this year, it was in time for this large Roots Tech Genealogy Conference, released, a book where you can build a book with the documentation that you already have in MyHeritage, and add in and layer in the stories and print it. The obvious caveat to this is, if you are that genealogist or family historian that's using that software, you really need to think ahead again to your goals and how you're going to get the non-genealogists to sign in and access that information? Or are you going to bring it out in bite-sized stories somewhere else? Because we do experience a lot of folks who are like, the second I see a family tree, I run that way. And it's not really fair, so to speak, to the genealogy software out there. Like, they make it as easy as possible, but there are people who just don't want to consume it that way. So if you are that family historian, you are that genealogist using any of that software, just think ahead of how you're going to then outwardly share this information. And then, of course, I'm the co-founder of Artifacts, and I would love to share, last week, we just found out that for the third year running, Family Tree Magazine awarded us one of the top 100 genealogy websites in the category of genealogy technology, which is super exciting. And the first year that we won it, we were so shocked. And I think it's because there is no family tree software inside our software. There's no research database. There are no DNA kits, right? We don't have the hallmarks of traditional genealogy. But what we really, really specialize in is making it as simple as social media to capture those bite-sized stories that you want to make sure live on, so that your family and your loved ones can know you better now and, generations from now. So I wanted to share that. It was really exciting news last week. But, with Artifacts, we operate a little bit differently, and we really take advantage of the fact that for as long as a person retains speech function, an object to which they have a strong emotional connection can actually spark conversation very uniquely from something generic. You can overplay that, and I will warn people. I have a prop I love to use. This is my mother carved this cat when she was 16. And if I tell her, Mom, you carved this, what's the story? And I'm just demanding this answer. You must know, this is yours. We run into a problem, right? Because then she feels like she's on the defense. So we want to be really careful that just because it is theirs doesn't mean, again, that they have the right answer. And in the case of this cat, the first time I asked her about it, I got one part of the story, which is, and it's written on the bottom, is the name of this cat, Pyewacket. And she told me about the film with Cary Grant, and it was a long story. It was awesome. The second time I asked her about it was more recently. She came to visit me here in Austin, Texas, and she told me she carved the cat when she was 16, and the boys and girls school had just merged together, and that creates a really unique dynamic. And the boys stole her cat. They were super jealous, and I was like, are they jealous of the cat, or are they trying to flirt? And she was like, probably both. So these objects can really bring you back in time in a unique way and remove the defensive. You don't have to have the answer. You can simply ask one thing that's true. What is this? It's a cat. So that's how we focus, and we use photo, video, and audio in that way. So it's a little bit more friendly for the non-genealogists to consume. Next slide, please.
Another option, of course, is that you can hire somebody, a professional, whether we have at the photo managers what we call certified legacy preservation specialists. They've gone through specialized training, and they're skilled at using different tools like Artifact or Mylio or Permanent. And so that's always an option if you find that you just yourself can't do it and you know how important this is. And they can also help you with the book building part of it. But so that's a pro. The con of that could be cost could be a factor. And it's something, sometimes maybe you just need a little coaching, or you need to talk with somebody who can just kind of give you some guidance in some direction. Again, of course, there's a lot of great books being written out there about different ways. And I think the research continues to show, like, we know music is another wonderful way. And music was a wonderful way that we connected with my mom. And we bought for her, it was a wonderful, through the Dementia, the Alzheimer's Association, it was a little white steepled church, and it had like 250 hymns. And that became, we had that on all the time. And I actually never got bored of those beautiful old hymns, but for her, that gave her the sense of peace. And then I could ask her questions about, wish she would start to sing one, Mama, what do you remember about that hymn? And then she would tell me the stories of singing in church growing up and being part of the choir and meeting my dad in the choir. And suddenly those stories came out because I was using what was giving her pleasure in the moment, as opposed to, again, kind of this idea that I had this list of questions. So, but those are tips and things that you can also learn from professionals as well, and helping you in this journey.
So before we head into a very short less demo, more show and tell, I suppose, of one tool artifacts that you can check out and explore. We're going to use a photo in that example, and that made me want to bring up this thing I say all the time now. With a photo, they can't talk, right? I always say we can animate them in kind of creepy ways, like Harry Potter's got that locked down, but I'm not sure about the rest. But what I tell people is that one generation removed and the story is gone, and a second generation, and it's a genealogy project. And this photo here is a great example of that. It's my mother playing tennis. And we found this as we were going through an old scrapbook that had no words in it whatsoever. We were going to digitize it. And I stopped on this photo because all I could think is, my mother does not play tennis. Like, no way, no how does my mother play tennis, right? So I'm stopped on this photo. I take a picture of the photo. My teenage daughter leans over my shoulder and she's like, why are you taking a picture of that? Who is it? And so I don't know why my mother is dressed in a tennis outfit. My daughter doesn't know it's my mother. So I took the photo and to my father, and I have it on video, him telling me this really funny story of her being in college, and they had these new tennis courts, and they didn't even have nets, and yet my mom still only managed to get a B. She was quite bad. But it was a really funny moment with my dad, and now we know the story. So to that end, we are going to share screen and show you an example of what an artifact looks like so that you understand what it is that we've created and patented with my co-founder, Heather Nickerson. So this is Artifacts, and this is actually publicly available. It's called Muriel the Welder. And my family flew me out what turned out to be about 6 months before my Aunt Muriel passed away. She passed away hours before she turned 98. And she wasn't feeling great when I flew into Tucson to visit her. My uncle said, I don't know if we can really talk with her much. You might have flown here for nothing. And so we get to her house. And at that stage and age, she had really downsized to a very, very minimal lifestyle. But she was sitting in her command center, and she had all of these things surrounding her that she wanted to share with me, the first being this photograph. And here's the thing about my Aunt Muriel. She was a strong woman, and she was a strong wife and proud mother. And on the walls in her home, she had a photo of her, then she was a widower, her husband, and he was with US presidents. He was shown in military uniform. He was the military hero. But she showed me this photo because she was a Rosie the Riveter, and her history had been lost. So we took a photo of the photo. We took a photo of, in the second image there are the goggles that she wore. And there she is in the third photo on the cover of the company's newsletter. And then there's the fourth is her in a newspaper article where her son got confused. He thought she just knew how to weld and volunteered in the community welding gates. Like he didn't have the curiosity to ask, I suppose, why did you learn to weld? And it turns out the US Navy certified her. And then finally, there's a video of her telling me the story of learning to weld the tail surfaces of airplanes during World War II and how the men had a hard time learning that skill because they were used to heavy welding, not this fine tail surfaces. So in one artifact, I have the story behind the photo, I have her on video, and I have the story that I was able to share with my family. She was a tough old lady. And I asked my cousins after, because I didn't know her. I said, was she always this tough? And they're like, yeah, she was always this tough. But when she saw this artifact, she got very teary. And she said, I didn't think anyone cared about these stories. That was her answer. And that really, really stuck with me. And actually, when she passed, her son gave me the photo that was one of many artifacts that we created together. And so that's the power with artifacts. Here, everything you create is private by default, but you can instantly share it with friends and families. And you can even download it if you want to give someone a PDF of all your coolest artifacts so they can read through them and they like hard copy. But that's what we're doing here. And we want to welcome all of you to try this out for your own storytelling needs.
I love that story. I mean, I love that story on many levels, is from the idea that it's a forgotten fact of history. We all know about we were taught at some point about the welders and stuff, but then they had to go back to work and they became kind of invisible. And the fact that your aunt was one of those people, and the fact that she knows that she wasn't that piece of history did get passed on, I think is really important. And I think that's important in this generation right now, that of people that we are dealing with so much with. Also, there's so many stories that we weren't today. Our kids, we live in a storytelling generation where everything has been captured on Instagram, or reels, or social media feeds, or TikTok, or all the different ways that our kids are telling their stories. Our young adults have been telling stories, but the older generation didn't have that opportunity, right? And so there's quite a few stories that we don't know, and we all only know if we ask them. Another lesson I wanted to mention that I learned also in researching for this presentation was a book that somebody had written about going to visit his mom. He started getting the stories of the people that, they'd be sitting in the living room and kind of run out of things to talk about. And he talked about the joy he got in starting to ask the other people their stories. And that seemed to open up his mom's ability then to tell her stories, instead of that kind of intensity of one-on-one, but sitting in a circle in the lobby, or and that's when my mom passed away too. So many people came up to me and told me, "Oh my God, your mother told us so many amazing stories." And I was like, she did. I mean, she told you amazing stories about her work, and different about, of course, about us and things like that. And again, that was a surprise to me. And so I wish I had done more of that too. So if you're finding that you're having trouble getting those stories from family members, if they're in a independent living or memory care unit, maybe kind of go to a group setting and ask the other people their stories, and it might help then to kind of change those dynamics a little bit. Another important thing is to resist corrections and interrupting. Again, there can be changes, and the stories can change and can be edited, and so be careful on that. And then, starting with something like, who is this, or where was this, or maybe less about the feelings and emotions in it, but kind of more about just the facts and things to get the conversation started. And then you can always come back and revisit conversations. It's not like, again, you have to have that, we're so goal driven and busy in our culture, I think sometimes, that we have this agenda, and then we find some of that. So I think, Ellen, you're going to walk through a little bit more of the lessons here. Lessons from the field.
Yeah, I'll add in just a couple more. I mean, your lessons are spot on. And I think we've hit this really. We brought these lessons here because you and I have lived through this, and the research supports us, and we want to help you all knowing the tech before you start. And Kathy said it beautifully, like, your anxiety can't translate into their anxiety, right? And so just, if you're going to be on your mobile device, make sure you're signed in, make sure you've tested how it works in that mobile device. If you're going to be on a laptop, test it there. If they're in a community, make sure you got the Wi-Fi, all of that, just get it sorted so none of that anxiety or stress translates over. Now, on the flip side of this is the other thing, that in this point 2, vocalize as you work, really comes from the literature. And they are telling us, bring them into we talked about earlier, co-creation. They are co-creating this story with you. So don't have it be a passive, you sit tight, I'm going to do this. Talk to them, say, oh, look, now we can add in a photo. Now we can add in a video. Do you like this? Do you want to change it? Bring them into each step of that process so they feel ownership over it, and engagement and mental stimulus from it. And again, we hit number 3 a lot. Allow topics to transition freeform style. Now, when we presented this topic to genealogists, this can be really challenging, because often that goal, we talked about knowing your goals, if you are hell-bent on, I heard my family went out for the gold rush, I need the answers. Who was it? When was it? Where was it? If you are hell-bent on that answer, you're going to have a really hard time when they start free-forming it and they're like 5 topics over on you. But remember where we started. This is an inherently good activity for their health and for your relationship together. One of my things I love that my father told me is, like, when I am artifacting with your mom, I'm not her caregiver. I'm her best friend. And that's the golden thing. This is the connection that we're talking about. And you have to be able to take a breath and let that topic move on. And maybe you can try again on the gold rush another day.
Yeah. And again, that, allowing that silence and pauses to exist, to get comfortable with that, and resisting that correction, that interrupting thing. And also if the conversation stalls, start with like, what is this like? And you've heard different stories about the cat, or different stories about different items that, could be in your home. And I think that's the other thing too. Photos, photos really matter. Care deeply. Photos, I think, tell the story, and they're a great way to do that. But items also tell stories. And a tea set, or my mom, the Hummels that my mom had that she had gotten from Germany, from her parents, or her aunts and things like that, which is kind of a joke, like how many Hummels can people pass down? But there's a story behind those Hummels. And so and I know those stories. And so my kids have inherited some of those, and they know the story behind that. And then also making sure that you ask permission from people, making sure that you're honoring their independence still. And I think that was another thing. My mom was fiercely independent, and then losing that independence was part of that anxiety. And again, having some distance now, more empathy, and seeing some of that, because it's hard when you're the caregiver to manage the anxiety that's coming at you constantly. But realizing that was just a lot of fear, because she knew that she wasn't remembering things, or she couldn't see as well. And that was really scary. And of course we want to fix those things, but we have to just kind of let it is part of the process. So let's see if we have one more. Let's see if we have. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, there's no magic bullet. We didn't give you one big, if you came thinking there was going to be that one perfect nugget. Hopefully there's little nuggets and things. Artifact is a wonderful product, and I think you can talk a little bit about that. Ellen, I'll let you share a little bit more, and then we'll take questions.
Oh, no, I'm good. Let's go right to Q&A, because I know that this topic can stir up a lot of questions.
So I'll read that to you. Do you have any research figures on how many people use Artifact or photos and objects to help people with dementia to feel better?
So I don't have it for artifacts, but your question is spot on. It was when we first started our company, it was anecdotal information from the artifacts community that put us on the pathway to doing research. We were hearing, we have a better day as a caregiver to someone with dementia when we are artifacting together, right? They're talking about medicine compliance, like how hard is it to get them to take their pills? We're talking about how is sundowning hours go? How much joy, how much freedom, how much relief from the anxiety are they getting? So we were getting this anecdotal information, and we intended to go forward into research in that direction. But lo and behold, when we met with UMass Chem Medical and realized how much earlier in the process we could get and help on the screening side, that was the avenue that we won funding for. So that's where we're starting. But in terms of photos and objects, one area that you can Google is reminiscence therapy. There have been a number of companies that have started. This is not definitive research, but it's very positive signs that this is very helpful to you when done correctly. You could, and Kathy even alluded to this, you could show them exactly the wrong photo and you send them spiraling because you open up a raw wound in their history. So there are some caveats, but if you look up reminiscence therapy, Life Bio has done research on this, Vivipix has done research on this, and a whole host of others. And so that's a really good area if you want to learn more, is to look up reminiscence therapy.
Yeah, and it's a growing, I think, like the Massachusetts study, it's such a growing field of information. And, I wear my Aurora ring, which is, part of that is for brain health. You've got your, not that this is any way a pitch for those, but anytime, of course, maybe my newsfeed is algorithms, but it definitely tells me, what are the 5 things that you can do? We know sleep, stress, connection. These are the things that really help with brain health. Here's another great, can artifact projects be shared offline with family members?
Yeah, I just got an email this weekend about this question. It wasn't actually a question. The email was showing, it was a photo, and I asked permission if we can share it. This woman had gone through her father's house with her siblings, and they created artifacts about their memories growing up there. And they downloaded all of those artifacts as a PDF. And they brought them to their father, and they used that in talking to him and sharing stories. And she said it was kind of magical. And that makes me really happy because really one of the founding principles of how we build artifacts is these are not our artifacts, for the record. They're yours, right? So we make it easy to download. We don't compress your files. Kathy and the photo managers know all about this. If you put those photos in Facebook, sorry, Charlie, they're going to compress them. You're never going to download them and blow them up and put them on your wall, right? This is your content, not ours. So we want to make it really easy to use in whatever format you need it.
Yeah, we got a nice comment. Somebody said she appreciates you're able to update because when speaking with siblings and cousins, you get additional nuggets about memories. Absolutely. And that's a great, and bringing in other family members to ask these questions really is an important part. I also noticed there just were a couple more comments about somebody, Jerry said they taught her aunt in the nursing home how to ask Alexa to play old time hymns and Johnny Cash. And then somebody else mentioned they have a clip of their father singing with their music therapist that the music therapist arranged for them. Right. So we know there are so many ways that memory is remembered, but I like that idea of going through the old family house and then showing that would give me great joy if my kids went through our family home and came back to me with stories of their childhood that they remembered, that they had good memories of. That would make me as happy as anything could, more than me telling them about my life. I would get great joy in them telling me about memories they had about the life that I tried to create for them. Right. So I can see where that would have been a really positive experience. Yeah. All right. I don't think we have any
and all questions. We're all yours, folks.
Well, you can always come back if you share this. You can always put questions in the chat. We get notifications when questions come. We'll be happy to come back and answer them. We also just really want to thank you for your time and attention with us today. And it's an important topic. I think something we'll continue to revisit. Again, please like us, share it. And again, if you have more questions, we'd be thrilled to answer them. But best to all of you who are dealing in this situation with caregivers, that you are the caregiver of elderly parents, or maybe even spouses or family members or things like that. We have a lot of compassion for where you are in that. And these stories matter, and our stories matter. So we believe that the core of who we are and what we do. So thank you.